And there you have it. The Illini season is over. Illinois loses to Kentucky in the round of 32. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome one, welcome all to the last post-game edition of Locked On Illini, at least for this season. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Season's over. It's a frustrating game. I don't mind this happening on a Sunday. I'm going to kind of keep things a little open. There's going to be a lot of venting going on, I'm sure. This was a game where Illinois didn't give itself a chance at winning. And I think that's the frustrating part. There's certainly things that I'm glad to see. The fight in this team, they honestly never gave up. I thought this was a team that when you punch them in the face early in the game, that they don't have the wanting to come back. They don't have the dog in them to come back. And they absolutely did. We never really got the score to get all that closer. We got it to 8 at one point at the end. But quite honestly, it comes down to that opening start that Illinois had, where essentially they had 8 turnovers in, I think, the first 8 minutes of the basketball game. Can't do that. And then in the second half, you had a 10-0 run by Kentucky. And it comes down to one of those where Kentucky is a good enough basketball team that you can't make mistakes like that because you're not good enough to overcome it. You are a very good basketball team. And I still believe that. I think you're a good basketball team, but you're certainly flawed. And there's various things that I want to talk about changes I want to see on this team moving forward. But I don't know if this is the episode for that right now. Again, I say it every day that these post-game sessions are more so for my closing thoughts on the game, but also your closing thoughts for the game. In victories, we celebrate together, and in losses, we have a little community therapy. And I promise I don't charge you nearly as much as a therapist would. All I ask for in return is to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. So if you haven't already, I'm just pulling up the box score now. I want to hear who you guys think is your MVP of the game. I think there's 2 or 3 guys I want to actually give it to. This was a game about the veterans. Unfortunately, Illinois played the way they did, and their freshmen just didn't show up. This roller coaster Illini season coincided with a roller coaster Kasparis Jakucionis season. And today was just one of those days where, especially in the opening 4 minutes, your best player literally got benched. And that's usually not a good sign when your best player, who, again, not only was he bad offensively and constantly giving up the ball, he had 4 turnovers in those first 5 minutes, but all game long, he was getting cooked on the defensive side. And again, this is the therapy, right? Like, we're all allowed to say, even you guys in the chat, I'm going to read them all in the third segment. We're all allowed to say things that we don't necessarily believe, but we're just venting. And, how this Kasparis season is going to be remembered, is something I'm going to deep dive into down the road. I have to remind myself that he's 18, and Illinois just hasn't had a player like this before. I think one of the flaws of this basketball team, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts because I know there's going to be a lot of vitriol. I think what Kasparis could have used was to have a guy like a Terrence Shannon Jr. on this team, a veteran star. I think Kasparis, if Kasparis was your number 2 on this basketball team, I don't think a lot of us would have had the issues that some of us have. I don't think a lot of us would have some of the frustrations that a lot of us have. But the fact is, we were counting on him as our number 1. And for half the season, he carried us as the number 1 player on this basketball team. And then eventually just kind of I wouldn't even know how to phrase it. It's like he just didn't quite improve. And the turnovers, in particular, at the end of the games, we had seemingly averaged 6 turnovers in the last 6-7 games of the season. Today he had, it says today he has 6 too. Again, I'm not looking at the official box score yet. I don't think it's been quite updated, but let's just talk about the game itself, and then we'll talk about the actual players afterwards. Illinois, right off the bat, just turnover after turnover after turnover. You're not going to win a game against a team equal to you if you're turning the ball over, if you're not shooting the ball. Look, they had some excellent analysis on the broadcast today. Someone said that you can't score the ball if you don't shoot it. Now, quickly, I wrote that down because that was absolutely fantastic scouting. And, I learned something about every day I watch basketball. I learned something new. And that's something I learned today. They just continually shot themselves in the foot. And against a team like Kentucky, again, I know a lot of Illini fans were feeling very confident coming into today. I knew it was going to be a 50-50 game. Kentucky was the higher seeded team here today. At 6-3. So I know a lot of us are frustrated, and I think I'm probably do a group vibe therapy session, maybe even later on, just talking about the season in general. Like, what was the season now? Before we talk about the season, let's just continue to talk about this game. Kylan, Boswell, Trey White, the veterans. Again, early in this game, just like the previous game, it was Tommy Ivisic. Where would this team be without Tomislav Ivisic? And eventually, he just kind of ran out of gas. He was scoring the ball. He was blocking the ball. He was making 3-pointers. And I'm telling you, I can't wait. I really like what this team is going to look like next year. All right. Maybe that's where I'm going to just kind of switch over conversation to. If you can return Tommy, if you can return a Trey White, a Morez Johnson, who am I missing? Kylan, Boswell. You have a really solid foundation of a team for next season. The key is, and I think Brad knows this, is this year the team went all in on Kasparis and Will Riley. I mean, not necessarily. Keep in mind, we were going after guys like AJ Storr, who didn't work out in Kansas. We were going after guys like, what's his name, David Jones from Memphis, veteran players. And it didn't work out. But ultimately, what he settled on were 2 highly regarded freshmen. Will Riley, the highest recruit we've gotten in a very long time, since the D. Brown era, and Kasparis, who, quite honestly, he was a very good freshman player all season long, right? Again, but imagine if you could have filled one of those spots with a star, a John Tonje, like Wisconsin had gotten, and made Kasparis your 2 guy, or Will Riley your second guy. You're not the guy you're necessarily counting on, because ultimately these guys are 18 years old, 19 years old, and they're not Cooper Flagg. This is not Carmelo Anthony or anything like that, right? These aren't generational players. They're just very good college basketball players. And, when it comes to it, Brad's roster construction, which again is not completely his fault, replacing 10 guys on this roster. I've talked about it ad nauseum. You guys know. Ultimately, it just couldn't overcome the problem. And, there's flaws in this roster, sure. I don't think there's as many flaws as people think. I think there's other issues with this team that I think are going to be fixed in the offseason. Mainly, spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about it this week, the defense. What's his name? The other assistant coach, Zach Hammer. This drop coverage doesn't work. Stop. Kentucky pulled away continually because and this happened all season long, that we would let players get hot and just not adjust and keep giving them wide open shots. That's my number one biggest change I want in the offseason. But again, this game to me, just to kind of wrap up talking about the game itself, it came to just a freshman didn't show up today. Will Riley had a very poor game himself. He barely, I'm trying to pull up the stat right now, 1 for 7 from the field, 0 for 3. I know I haven't caught the comments yet. Some of you might be complaining about the coaching. I don't know if the coaching was the issue today. let me get this out of the way, and then I'll get to the comments later because we can have a conversation about it. Illinois lost this game because they kept turning the ball over. And there's no strategy that Brad Underwood pulls up on his whiteboard and says, here, when you cross the half-court line, throw it to the other team. Like, there were just simple mistakes by the players. And, and that's frustrating. I actually thought the game plan on offense was pretty decent. Kentucky can't guard the 2. And right off the bat, you had Will Riley attacking the rim. Now, Will, again, I don't know if it's just freshman mistakes, but even though he'd get to the rim, he'd be guarded by the 7-footer Williams, and he wouldn't be able to get a shot off. And yet he still tried. He was blocked 2 or 3 times trying to do that. Kylan figured it out. They kind of switched it up a little bit later on in the game where Kylan was the one who attacked the rim because Kylan, for the most part, made the right plays. Hey, attack the rim, get to the rim, and then evaluate. Do you have a shot or not? Will Riley was more so attack the rim and shoot, regardless of who's around you and whether you have a good shot available. The game plan was solid on the offensive side. On the defensive side, again, for me, it's one of those, I got tired of watching this team play on defense. I know we had great defensive efficiency numbers early in the season, but it continued to get worse. And it's one of those where, in my opinion, it is and there's no doubt, the number one priority that Brad's going to have to address in this offseason. Okay, let's talk about some of these individual players right after this. When you talk about MVP of this game, honestly, it's got to be Kylan. Kylan, I wish he kind of stepped up earlier because when KJ was playing the way he was, when Will Riley was playing the way he was, we needed somebody to step up. And Kylan was really the only guy who did. Well, Tommy did. Tommy was our best player for the first 8 to 10 minutes. Tommy showed up. And he was the only guy, I would argue, in this entire roster, and that includes Kylan, that from the tip-off was there and ready. But, Kylan, junior year, I'm really excited to see him next season, in Champaign. It's 9 for 14 today, 23 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 of 5 from the free throw lines. And I'll be honest, Kylan had some mind-numbing turnovers himself as well. That just drove me absolutely crazy. But that's what this game was. And that's the frustrating part. I just got finished watching last night. I watched the Wisconsin Badgers and BYU game, which was an amazing game. And, John Tonje had 37 points. Every time Wisconsin needed a bucket, they went to their 24-year-old star. He might be 25 at this point. I don't even know. And John continually came through until the last play of the game. But Illinois didn't have that. Kylan is a very good basketball player. He's not a superstar. Tommy Ivisic is a very good basketball player. He's not a superstar. Kasparis, Jakucionis, Will Riley are very good basketball players. They, in their current form, are not superstars. They could be. The NBA thinks they could be. And again, nothing's changed. I would still be shocked if Kasparis is not a top 10 pick in the upcoming NBA draft. But he wasn't as an 18-year-old freshman at Illinois. And I don't know if that's his fault. Because if we just consider the context of the season, Kasparis was a very good basketball player. He just had a lot of pressure on him because we didn't think about this. Remember how hard Illinois went after trying to get Marcus Domask a waiver to come back this season? They went all out in efforts for it. And unfortunately, it didn't work out. But imagine Marcus Domask being the best player on this basketball team. Then you wouldn't necessarily need Kasparis to be your alpha. You wouldn't need Will Riley. They'd go down a roll. And that's, in my opinion, what this team was severely lacking. We knew the name, but it's just hard to count on an 18-year-old to show up day in and day out. Yeah, sure, the box score looks nice. And he is overall a great player, but frustrating. And it's because he was our playmaker. He's the guy who has the ball in his hands all the time. And, this was something that never changed. Like, he was always making turnovers. That's even in the beginning of the season when he was playing great. but it got amplified at the end of the year because us Illini fans had been watching this for 4 months. And I think we kind of hoped that we would see some sort of improvement on it. And that's absolutely not what happened at all. We got 110 people in here and 20 likes. Come on, guys. Win, lose all season long. Football season, basketball season, every single time I have been here doing a post-game session with you guys. So I would really appreciate it if you can hit that like button for me. Again, this will be the last post-game live of the season, unfortunately, unless Illinois, the women's team, pulls something off Monday night against the Texas Longhorns. Who knows? Maybe I'll jump on for that. But let's get to your thoughts right after this. Okay, we have 110 comments, so I'll try to speed through these as fast as I can. Kylan, nice to see you, says, this was the perfect summary of the season in one game. Just brutal. I want Boswell, Morez back. Don't know if there's anyone else. Kylan, again, we'll talk about this a lot for all week long. I want Trey White back. I want Morez back, Boswell back, as you said. Outside that, yeah, who knows? We'll see. That's it. Well, Tommy, of course. I want Tommy back. I think Tomislav is going to be an all Big Ten next year. Hopefully, his NBA grade hasn't graded him out of coming back to Champaign next year. Emo says, agreed, glad this year is overrated all year. You know what? It's hard for me. I tend to be more optimistic, right? I guess on the football side. On the basketball side, when you guys are negative, I try to balance the boat. When you guys are positive, I try to balance things out. And ultimately, if I'm going to be honest with you, E-Miller, you're right. All season long, we've been talking about the ceiling of this basketball team. But I think what we didn't realize, or maybe we did, some of you are a lot smarter than me, and some of you maybe realized this before I did. This team wasn't going to reach its ceiling the way it was constructed for the reasons I mentioned earlier. The team is just too young. Guys, it's one of the youngest teams in the Power Four. And I keep bringing up the game just because I saw it last night. It's fresh in my brain. I wish this team had a guy like Tanjay. And trust me, I think Brad's going to go all out in efforts to find a guy like that. Look, we may get Dame Sar, to come in and be the 5-star freshman on next year's team. But I would be shocked if there wasn't a very, very talented, productive veteran who also Brad Underwood will target in the transfer portal. By the way, if this was Will Riley's last game, it was emotional seeing him so emotional at the end of the game. So that's why, I know a lot of people complain that this team just didn't seem to have it, or that they didn't really care. I think moments like that, and you see that the team did care. And you know what? As I've talked so much about the bad in this game, and there was a lot of bad in this game. Again, I just want to reiterate that this team didn't give up. And I feel like this team would have given up earlier in the season. Jokingly, I had a group chat of buddies who literally, I think 5 minutes into the game, sent me my own video of the Duke game where the title was broken because they're essentially insinuating that's what was going to happen again. But Illinois didn't. They stood strong. They held the resolve. And, again, not that we could ever really get it close enough, but really that has to do with the way you started that first half and the way you started that second half. Illinois is a good basketball team, but they can't overcome mistakes like that. And they couldn't overcome it today. Kentucky played well. I don't know if Kentucky played fantastic. Caitlin says this team's insistence on shooting threes and undisciplined defense was its downfall. Hopefully, whoever does end up on the team will care more. Defense, I 100% agree with you, Caitlin. The threes, that's going to be a conversation I know I'm going to be having with you guys all season long. 100%. It's going to be the main topic because it was the main story all season long, this past season. So I'm sure this is what we're going to talk about in the off season. See what kind of talent people bring in. It's going to be 3-point shooting. So does that mean that they're going to go towards a similar game plan on the offensive side? Honestly, I think they are. I don't think they're changing the offensive side of the basketball. It's the defensive side, which I talked about earlier. I vented about earlier. Something needs to be done. coaching changes need to be made, in particular on the defensive side, because that was just atrocious. And it didn't give us a chance to win on many nights. It says, if you want a team to shoot over 30 threes a game, you might want to get really good shooters on the team. Just a thought. Fascinating. Exactly right. Michael Moore says, poor coaching. I don't think it was poor coaching today, in my opinion. I think it was just poor play by the players. And I'm someone who admits when Brad Underwood had a really bad game. I think today it's the players that just had a really bad game outside Kylan. And I haven't mentioned his name. I want to give some love to Trey White. Trey White in that second half in particular seemed like he wanted to take things on himself and try to get the team going. That three-pointer with, I think, like 2.5 minutes left, which hit every side of the cylinder before falling out. Oh, that could have been such a game changer right there. So I do want to give Trey White his flowers. Kylan, Trey White, and Tommy Ivisic, I think were good enough. But the problem was we need, and I talked about this on the show, March, you need the stars. And we didn't have, last game was Will Riley. This game, we didn't get it out of Kasparis, 5 for 13 for 13 points, 13, 5 and 2 line, but 6 turnovers. And Will Riley was just awful. 5 points, 1 of 7 shooting. As I mentioned it before. Caitlin said the time is coming back next year. Needs to figure out how to keep himself in games, as does Morez. Morez, I'm keeping in mind, he has a very easy whistle. And that's a lot of Big Ten bigs. I would be shocked if Morez Johnson was called for as many fouls as he's going to be next season. School Stuff says there are no lottery picks on this Illini team. School Stuff, I would bet you money that I think there is. 1, if not 2. The way Will Riley played as of late, and I think Will Riley's going to score really well in the camps that they have beforehand, because he's just an outstanding shooter at his size. That's exactly what NBA team wants. He just needs to gain some weight. So that's the frustrating part, right? Like, I wish he would stay one more year with Fletch, because next year he could turn himself into a top 10 NBA pick, if not a top 7, top 5 NBA pick. But it's just not going to happen. And I don't think the Illini are planning for that to happen anyway. Richard says, don't start with coaching. He put them in a position to win, and KJ will, and Trey choked. Yeah, I don't mind Trey's game. I think Trey did what he needed to do. He finished 8 points, 7 rebounds today, 4 of 9. And I like the way he attacked the rim in that second half. He did his best on defense. Gregory, nice to see you on this side. Says, sucky season for sure. Philip says, who's the next assistant coach Brad goes and gets? Yeah, and trust me, this is going to happen immediately, guys. Phone calls, I promise you, if they haven't already happened as soon as the press conference is going to be over, this post-game press conference, it's starting tomorrow morning. Brad has an open assistant coach spot available. When Tim Anderson left, I was replaced with an interim guy. And Illinois has the money. Tim Anderson made, I think, $750,000 last year. So Illinois has the money to go out and get one of the top guys. And this is a highly sought-after position playing for Illinois. You're Big Ten. You're going to be in the spotlight. Again, for the second consecutive year, I would argue that if there's data out there, and some of you might find this, Illinois was talked about top 10 in the country when they weren't really even a top 10 team in the country most of this year. But it's becoming a bigger and bigger brand by the day. And so this is going to be a highly sought-after spot. And I would be shocked if Illinois and Brad Underwood in particular didn't make a huge hiring on the assistant coaching staff. Douglas says, we had games that we just couldn't get in our turnovers, and lack of depth hurt us, which is frustrating because this team we thought had so much depth. We thought this team was going to go 8, 9 deep. And I completely agree with you here, School Stuff. Need more age on the team next year. And that's what I talked about earlier on in this episode. And I'm going to be talking about it all this week and all off season for the most part as we kind of track this transfer portal. So I'm just going to say it again. If you haven't hit that like button, we got 40 likes on 116 people. Look, just because the season has stopped does not mean my season has stopped. I'm still going to be producing Illini content for you every single day. And we're going to be talking about the portal targets, who we want to see back on next year's roster. And we're going to be talking about this assistant coach, next hire. Who's that going to be? And just different adjustments that we want to see them make. Michael says, if you can't support them after loss, then you don't deserve to enjoy the wins. See, Michael, I think where I stand, and I know some of you are going to agree and a lot of you are going to disagree, is, and I'm just, I'll just go ahead right here with St. Dominic's comment. Brad has to go. I'm tired of this BS. It's absolutely unacceptable. I'm not rich, but I donate $20,000 to the collective, $10,000 for men's basketball and football. Brad has to go now. So there's a lot of people who agree with Rosary here. Okay, I'm just telling you. For me, if they had lost against Xavier in that first round, I would start leaning towards, yes, this was a failure of a season. But I disagree with him in the sense, or because we got where we are. Sweet 16 should be the expectations moving forward every year from here on out. There's no, if Brad Underwood has to replace 10 guys on next year's roster, now it's on him. Last year, I got it. Okay, you went all in on veterans. You had seniors everywhere because you really wanted to make a run, and you did, to the Elite Eight. But with that decision, which was the right one, might I add, you had to replace that talent this year. And in a completely rebuilding year, where you replaced 90% of your roster, something like 94% of the points from last year's team, you still won 22 games this season, and you have a round of 32 exit. And if that's going to be your down season, maybe you guys think I'm holding this program in not high enough regard. But I'm okay with that. If a down year is 22 wins, 12-8 Big Ten, Big Ten Conference, and a round of 32. Because to me, next year, and I've talked about this, you guys know, my everydayers in this chat absolutely know, I'm very high on next year's team, dependent on the guys that we bring back, because they're going to be more veteran, and they'll all have a full season of playing with one another. Emiller says, coaching, in my opinion, was not the problem. KJ threw how many passes away? How many turnovers did he have? Exactly right. Exactly right. Jason says, we need a real point guard or we'll never be contenders. We need kids that care, like Kylan, Morez. Also, see you later, KJ. Learn how to dribble the basketball. Yeah, it's just tough because Boswell's not the point guard. He's a point guard, but he's a guard. I don't want him to be the starting point guard on next year's team. I think him and Kasparis kind of worked well together. They matched up well together, but Kasparis just couldn't get over this turnover problem, and that's why we had the struggles that we did. Big Dog says, why did Underwood thought 18-year-olds in March was a good idea is beyond me. I don't know if that's necessarily the case because they went after other guys. Keep in mind, we tried to get Domask back. As I mentioned earlier, they really tried to get AJ Storr to come here. And let's be honest, AJ Storr was a disaster in Kansas. So we actually really dodged a bullet with the fact that he didn't come to Illinois. But then they went after David Jones. And I don't know, there's other guys that I'm just not thinking about. But, I don't think the original plan was Brad Underwood go all in on 2 18-year-old guys to be the best players on this basketball team. I think it's one of those where certain options didn't come to fruition. And so that's what we ended up with. Which, by the way, guys, if your backup option was landing you Kasparis, Jakucionis, and Will Riley, big picture, you did okay. And again, that's kind of my point. Brad, despite plan A, plan B, plan C, maybe even plan D not working, we still ended up with a guy who's going to be a top 6 MVP or NBA draft pick and maybe a top 20 NBA draft pick in Will Riley. It's just this season with the situation, with the parts to the roster, it just wasn't enough. Mike says, to all who want Underwood fired, want to go back to losing season and NIT at best. Jason, I understand, says, bye-bye, KJ. I'm over it. Harvey says, quit whining. Great season. KJ needs more time to get stronger. Will Riley should stay as well, but not sure why he played so little today. Harvey, because he stunk. Let's be honest. Will Riley was really bad today. And both of those guys are going to play at the next level. And, I'm going to be rooting for them, and I appreciate that their time here. Philip asks, portal targets. Philip, I know you're a subscriber to the show, so I'll definitely tell you, I'll keep you guys updated on that all week long once I get to focus. Today, it's more of a therapy session. I'm going to let you guys have most of the comments, and let's have a conversation. Robert says lost the game in the first 5 minutes. First 5 minutes of the first half and the first, 3-4 minutes of the second half. You can't give a team like Kentucky 8 minutes and not respond. You're just not good enough for that. You're not a number one team. You're not a Florida that I watched earlier today. You're not, an Auburn and Alabama. You're just not good enough. Caitlin says, I don't feel like Cage has developed enough this year, particularly when compared to Will. Whether that's on coaching or him, I don't know, but it's unfortunate. I don't know if I argue with that. I think he was very, very good because he came with such high expectations and he lived up to them, especially the earlier off in the season. Like, we were so excited about him. But the problem is he may have been the same player at the end of the season as he was in the beginning. And I think the frustration is he just didn't improve the way we wanted, as you said, Caitlin. So I don't blame you about that at all. TM says, same old story and same old excuses when it comes to Brad Underwood teams. Don't you get tired of it? I don't know what the excuses are. They went to the Elite Eight last year. Like we're one of the 4 teams who won 20 plus games for 6 seasons in a row. St. Dominic says, I'm done with the BS, different day. Brad stinks. He gets outclassed every tournament. If he doesn't have TSJ, I said Sweet 16 or bust. Josh Whitman, fire Underwood. Enough is enough. 8 years. Okay. I let you have the floor. I simply disagree. And, I'm making my arguments, whether you agree or not. Honestly, I offer this to you, St. Dominic's Rosary, Czar, if you're in the chat. There's a lot of people who don't like Brad Underwood, right? And you have arguments of why he shouldn't be there. Why don't I give you guys the floor? Maybe what I'll do sometime this week is have a live show. Call in. You don't have to show your face if you don't want to, but we can discuss this, debate it back and forth. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying I have my opinion. And my opinion simply differs from yours. Okay? Again, for me, a down season, 22 wins, a round of 32, I'm okay with that. But my expectations next year, honestly, if we have this core back, Ivisic, Trey White, Boswell, have Morez Johnson, I'd expect more. I think right now I'd expect Elite 8, if not. Because I think that is no longer rebuilding season. We're we're bringing the talent back. But down year, replace 10 guys. If you told us, okay, let me rephrase this. And I want to hear your guys' opinion on this. If we told you guys day one of this basketball season that this team was going to finish 22-13 and first round exit, whether you agree with me or not, I dealt with this chat all season long. I think most of us would have taken it. In fact, I think 80+% of us would have taken that. Considering, because we understand context. Context matters. That's my opinion. I think most of us at the end would have taken a 22-13 season and say, hey, you won the first round of the NCAA tournament. You couldn't quite make it to the Sweet 16. Philip says, at least it's better than the gross years. Absolutely. Now, Philip, I also want to be fair. I do think that the Underwood homers use that excuse too often. Right now we are at the point where if Illinois was ready to move on from Brad Underwood, we would be, I think, in the second tier of jobs, right? We would get a very good, talented head coach who wants to coach here. So it would be beyond the gross, like the gross comparison doesn't really work because we spend a lot of money now, and that's different. That's different from 10 years ago. Illinois is not quite at the forefront, especially with the rest of the Big Ten is catching up NIL-wise. But this would be a very attractive job for another quality head coach someplace. Serena says, very disappointed in the effort out of this team aside from Boswell. Kentucky had more real athletes, but give me Boswell, Morez, Trey, and Tommy, and let Orlando recruit, and we're cooking with gas next year. There you go. Rosie says, Sonny, I don't want to hear about next season. The problem is Brad Underwood. I'm done with Illinois basketball until Underwood is fired. I'm done. He has to go. Okay. I mean, that's fine. I hope you're not done with Locked On Illini. I would appreciate you. I always enjoy our conversations. Kenosha says, what would this team look like if Damasco was on it? We'll never know. I know. And again, that's just a hypothetical, right? Because again, I'm trying to put myself in Brad Underwood's head. And I watched this team. I watched this team all season long. I didn't miss a minute. Heck, I rewatched the games the next day. So technically, I've seen this team twice in one season. And so I've watched a lot of it. I see the flaws. I see what they do well, and I see what they don't do well. And I think the thing that they were just severely lacking was that one veteran guy that, yeah, again, Kylan's great, but he's not a superstar. I just think I keep bringing his name up, but if this team had a Tanjay, and I think we're going to go after one this year. I really do. I can't wait to ask around and try to let you guys know what some of those names are. And by the way, I can't exactly say the names on here all the time, but if you're in the Discord, you know before anyone else. Like this Josh Dix from Iowa, I knew the minute that Illinois had contacted him. I'm not allowed to say anything on the show for obvious reasons, but the Discord knew immediately. And that is the guy that Illinois is involved with. I just want you guys to know. Let's see what else we got here. Andrew says, recruit all the good players you want. Brad still needs to improve as a coach. Too many embarrassing losses this year. Kenosha says, I hope Brad takes the Texas job. Kenosha, I got bad news for you. Texas ended up hiring Sean Miller. Jason, I do agree with you here. Zach Hammer, please go away. With Tyler, I'm not sure. Tyler gets a lot of vitriol from a lot of fans. I understand it, but I'm ready for Zach to go away. Offense, I'm willing to be more open-minded about it. Global says, if you want to shim on offense, start shooting a lot of threes, recruit high-level shooters. Remember how we went hard after the break it, ended up picking Kentucky and roasted us, recruiting. Yeah, but Global, they did. Kylan Boswell shot, like 40% from three last year? There's no way Brad Underwood would know he would shoot 24% that he shot this year. Ben Humrickhouse settled at, 33%, but we had high hopes for him shooting 40-plus points. He recruited the guys. The guys just didn't shoot the way we were expecting. And yeah, I praise such a star. I absolutely do remember I was telling a buddy of mine the whole game, like, man, Illinois really wanted this break hit, and now you can actually see why. Lack of adjustment. Bray blitz him, makes him pass. Cage is not a lottery pick or a first rounder. I'm not sure why he's so celebrated. We never get a needed bucket off action. Guys, I'm telling you, I know we have a lot of NBA GMs in here, but they don't agree with you. I think you guys are missing the big picture. I know we have our own frustrations, and maybe that's what it is. John says, Sonny, now might be a good time to discuss who comes back next year. Is KJ, no way should he go pro yet? John, spoiler alert, he's 100% going pro. Same with Will. John, once more. Spoiler alert, he's 100% going pro. Let's get both another year with Fletch. Ivisic same. Need more of KB. Awesome. All right, let's see if we have any other thoughts. Again, sorry, we just had so many today. But you know what? Open invite. If you are interested in coming on to Locked On Illini and you want to, just be a co-host with me, come join a panel. Maybe I'll do a panel episode this upcoming week. I want to hear your arguments on Brad. I'll let you hear mine. And again, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying you're right. But I don't think it's as clear as some people are saying. I'm going to be talking about this more on tomorrow's, just evaluating the season in general. And for the most part, you guys have heard my opinion. It's, I think, I wouldn't call today a successful season, but it's not a failure of a season by any stretch. I think this is just one of those, okay, you just have to take it type of seasons. But that's all I have for you today. Again, if you guys don't mind, hit that like button, subscribe button on your way out. If this is the last time I see a lot of you, I hope it's not. I'm going to continue producing content for you guys every single day because you guys made it fun. And hopefully we'll continue to have these conversations each and every day. If there's a topic you want to see, find me on your favorite social media, Locked On Illini or The Sunny V. You see it right there. Send me an email, thesunnyv@icloud.com. I'd love to have these conversations with you. You let me know what you guys want to see on the show, and I'll make it happen. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope this is not the last time. But if some of you are saying goodbye until football season, appreciate having you on board. The others, we've got an action-packed offseason to talk about. We can focus on football again a little bit just because there's a lot of going on with Brett Bielema's team. And basketball, the season never ends with college basketball. Okay, the transfer portal is hitting hard. Players are already making decisions, and who Illinois decides to go after, I'll have the news for you as soon as I can. Looking forward to it. Until next time, ILL. Appreciate all of you guys.